Debunction Junction, what's my function? I love this segment. All right, story number one, true or false?
The man charged with plotting the embassy bombings nearly walks free.
Nearly walks free. Is that true or false? False. Unless you consider 20 years in prison, minimum, no parole, to be nearly walking free. In a federal court in New York yesterday, a former Guantanamo prisoner who was tortured in U.S. custody and thought by many, therefore, to be unprosecutable, he was convicted. He was convicted of conspiracy in the 1998 U.S. embassy bombings. The charge of which he was convicted carries a minimum sentence of 20 years in prison without parole. Prosecutors say they will be pushing for a life sentence. On Fox News today, that was reported as nearly walking free. 20 years without parole. Minimum. Story number two, true or false? Sarah Palin has waded into the battle between Congressman Ed Royce and Spencer Bachus over who should be chairman of the House Financial Services Committee. Palin has put some weight behind Ed Royce in that fight because Spencer Bachus, she says, was for the Wall Street bailout. Is that true or false? That is false. Spencer Bachus was for the Wall Street bailout, and Sarah Palin may be anti-Spencer Bachus for any number of reasons. Could be because he said publicly that Sarah Palin cost the Republican Party the Senate this year. But it cannot be true that Sarah Palin is against Spencer Bachus right now because Bachus voted for that Wall Street bailout. That's why she says she's against Spencer Bachus. But that can't be the reason, because Sarah Palin herself was for the Wall Street bailout.
Now, as for the economic bailout provisions and the measures that have already been taken, it is a time of crisis, and government did have to step in, playing an appropriate role to shore up the housing market, to make sure that we're thawing out some of the potentially frozen credit lines and credit markets. Government did have to step in there.
David Corn did a great piece on this today at Mother Jones. Sarah Palin says she is anti-Spencer Bachus, and actually anti-Lisa Murkowski for that matter, because they were for the Wall Street bailout. But Sarah Palin herself was for that bailout too. So there's got to be something else going on there. And story number three, true or false? The U.S. Senate race in Alaska is done. Is that true or false? False. All three falses today. The Associated Press has called it for incumbent Republican Senator and write-in candidate Lisa Murkowski. Yes, NBC News has declared Lisa Murkowski the apparent winner. Yes, Senator Murkowski declared victory last night. But the Republican nominee, Tea Party favorite Joe Miller, is not giving up. To find out why, we'll ask our fake Alaska Senate race correspondent, Bill Wolf. Bill?
Fake?
Well,
I lived there for 28 hours. Had a beard for 3 weeks. Yeah, Joe Miller is not going quietly into that good night. We learned this afternoon from the Associated Press that Joe Miller has asked a federal judge to issue a temporary or preliminary injunction against certifying the election results. And on his website, he has 6 affidavits of Alaskan voters which suggest write-in voter fraud and ballot box stuffing. So Joe Miller, despite the fact that the Alaska Republican Party told him to give it up, is raging against the dying of the light, or something less poetic. Well, you know what I mean?
I don't mean to be weird, but since Joe Miller is still fighting,
yeah,
you think you might have been a little premature in shaving off your Alaska election beard?
Well, I did come prepared for this eventuality.
Who says you can't have it both ways?